What's going on, everyone? It's Snoo back again with part 2 of the 3-part series Breaking the Meta, featuring a high-budget Magic Fine Lightning Arrow character, 3 separate ascendancies with 3 different auras, all using Sublime Vision unique jewel tech. This is a project I decided to start on over a week ago. Didn't plan to make 3 separate ascendancies, but I just got so vested into it, and I saw some really unique opportunities to utilize the different ascendancies and their strengths with the different jewels that I chose. Really looking forward to sharing this one with you. I think this is the most inventive one, especially when I check PoE Ninja and see that literally nobody is doing exactly what I'm doing in this build. Most notably, that would be Sublime Vision Vitality combined with Cast on CoC Forbidden Rite, and you probably don't realize exactly what that means, but don't worry, I'm going to show it to you here real quick. We're going to start with core items, where I'll get right into exactly what that is. Then we'll do a map showcase so you can actually see it in action. You know, Crimson Temple this time. And then, of course, we'll go over the gear, the gems, the passives, the PoB, final thoughts, but we're definitely going to go through this video much more quickly than the first one, and I speak for the third video as well, which I'll be making in the future with the Ascendant and Haste. And this is because much of the items, much of the build is the same. It just has some really unique different variations to it, and especially jewel slot placements, things like that. So if you haven't seen the first video featuring the Deadeye and Anger and Scorch, which was really cool in and of itself, highly recommend you see that one. Otherwise, you might get lost in some of the things I'm saying on here, because it's going to be kind of blazing through the gear and the gems especially quickly here. But let's get into this video here. You can see the champion here. He's full of rage. He's a raging Magic Fine Lightning Arrow champion, I guess. This sucker has baseline 12 rage per second, goes all the way up to 20 pretty consistently, about 20 rage per second, and it can actually go even higher, almost like 26 or 27 potentially, when certain conditions are met. But I'm saying this is basically a 20 rage per second character. Pretty outrageous. You probably never had a character with that much rage. We'll see what that looks like again in maps. So we're going to start with core tech. And I will just bring you back down to the passive, just like I did last time. Here it is. We're going to start here every single time. Sublime Vision. I guess I already got Corrupted Blood immunity out of the way. You might recall I had it on an Inspired Learning for the Deadeye, but no Inspired Learning this time, so that is a bit of a difference. We'll get into, when we check the passives, I'll show you everything that's going on there with that Thread of Hope large wheel. Yes, you can have a massive Thread of Hope and a large Thread of Hope. You'll see the massive Thread of Hope is also in a different place where the champion starts, and an Elegant Hubris way down here. Really going to be a fun time looking at all that stuff there. I guess we will kind of look into that just a second here. But the main line, the big line of text here, is where it says regenerate 15% life over 1 second when hit while affected by Vitality. That's a lot of life per second, but it has a really strict condition. It only lasts for 1 second and only after you've been hit. And the fact of the matter is, in maps, even with a character that has very, very low evasion, like this character or the Deadeye, with no grace or anything, don't actually get hit all that often when you just kind of flying through the map, and the monsters don't really have a chance to hit you, especially when you have over 400% movement speed, which this character does. One thing that kind of sets this character apart from the other two is it's surprisingly fast. It might actually be the fastest character in combat situations, but it is definitely the slowest character out of combat when looting, even though it still has the mage blood, but definitely an absolute speed demon. Very well suited for Crimson Temple. The circuit there with kind of like a racetrack where you keep going, you're constantly in combat the whole time, mainly because of challenger charges and adrenaline are both reliant on you staying in combat for those to be up, and they give a lot of extra movement speed. But we are using Vitality, which is kind of the most sensible one when you think about, what aura you want in a Calm Spirit Berserk build. Of course, we're using Calm Spirit, and I want to have a lot of life regeneration that converts into rage regeneration. I guess something like over 300 of it here when I deposit that into a Pariah, which is like a level 21 Anomalous Vitality, straight into a Pariah. And it works really nice, but it's kind of overkill, right? Like way more rage than I need. It might be what some of you are thinking, but I implore you to consider the ramifications of having more rage than you need. It means that your Berserk uptime is higher. Not just that you have the rage you need to click Berserk, but that you have Berserk up longer, and you spend much more time at maximum rage with Berserk. So that is like maximum player power scenario, right? One thing I definitely want you to watch when we do the map is the rage bar just sitting here at the top for like seemingly forever. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why this character is a little bit faster than the other two potentially in combat. How in the world am I making use of the special line, regenerate 15% life over 1 second when affected by vitality? Well, that is the secret tech of the day. You remember last time on the Deadeye, this helmet was the same, right? It had Frenzy with Mana Forge Arrow support. This is a quality of life Mana Forge Arrow support. Usually has power charge on crit, and then Cull, or maybe Ensnare Arrow. This time, I dropped the Cull, lost some damage there. Not really a whole lot of damage in a practical sense, but some PoB damage for sure. Cast on Crit, Forbidden Rite. Now, Cast on Crit Forbidden Rite is used for a wide variety of different things, but not for this usually. It works. When I crit with Frenzy, it procs Forbidden Rite. And I got it right here so you can see it proccing exactly when it does in maps. I also got Frenzy, you can see how often that goes, as well as Burning Arrow with our full 6-link life tap support, which will be going off quite a bit. I'll be taking a lot of damage, right? Or in a way, I mean, life tap support doesn't count as getting hit, so it doesn't work with this line. That's why we're using Forbidden Rite. But it does mean that my life will be draining pretty hard against a Divination Distillate, so I'll have no problem keeping that up. I'll be more concerned with keeping myself alive, I suspect. But, you know, we're on a champion, I am tanky, and I got a little more Chaos Res than you might think I do for this endeavor. I'm not Chaos Res capped, but probably won't need to be because, again, I'm a champion. So let's actually get over to the champion. Right quick. So we're going to go over the passives in a while, but you know, it does pertain to the core items here in the tech that's being used. Having Fortify and an extra 10% damage reduction while taunt is really strong, as well as 37 additional Chaos Reds I didn't have, and that power charge on crit is right here inside the Elegant Hubris, so that's where I'm getting the power charges on crit. Here are some of the remaining nodes that I'm getting. 2 separate rarities, a crit multi, and shock avoidance in conjunction with thick skin. I did this on every single build with a storm shroud down here, so we're totally element immune, even though I can only use 1 aura. No purity of elements needed there. All right, so we'll get into more of the passives later. Let's go ahead and get to the first map. I got a map here. I deliberately selected this one that is I suppose a little more dangerous than average. We got the combination of a crit mod, monster mod, as well as just straight up % increased damage monster mods, and 2 additional projectiles, and skills chain 2 extra times. Ooh, this could be really rough, actually. Not 100% sure I won't die in here, but I'm hoping. I'm thinking I probably won't. Let's go ahead and try it out. This is a Crimson Temple map, and I'll go ahead and select Einar on there. Just for fun. Let's get to it. Okay, and again, I'm going to watch for that Forbidden Rite to proc. Every time that procs, I'm basically getting an extra 8 rage over 1 second on top of the 12 that I already have. We got a Delirium Mirror. I wasn't sure that would spawn, so you can check the atlas in the description below if you want. I already double back here for some of these things, don't I? Alright, it's always scary to check the altars. Very risky times. Okay, this is one reason why I have Expedition in the map, so that I can... It does a great job freezing the mirror. I don't really care that much about the explosives. Already got my 1000 rage. Heading up to the boss room. Can't seem to stop spawning altars, though. Okay, double Val Lightning Arrow just completely annihilated those. That looked like a lot of DPS, right, inside a mirror? Well, this is the lowest DPS character. By far, actually. I mean, it's not that bad. It still has like 13 million DPS. I guess it would have like 15 with Cull. on it, but it definitely has around, I'd say maybe 15 to 20% less DPS than both of the other two characters. You'll recall the Deadeye its claim to fame is more damage. The Champion's claim to fame is more tankiness. No surprise there. And it also uniquely has a lot of speed. It has a ton of speed. Now, let's see here at Forbidden Rite. I haven't really looked at this going off yet. It kind of needs some monsters to be alive, you know, for Frenzy to go off right. But, you know, you can kind of see it going off fairly often there. Okay, we got Templar boss. You know how that is. Quite often die right in the blink of an eye, but no problem there. Just kind of going to go through and open all the legions and strong boxes that I see. I'm not being very diligent on the pathing here. Usually I have a very systematic approach to this map, but kind of all over the place because it's impossible to focus when you're doing all this stuff. Would be nice to have inspired learning right now, and you know you could work inspired learning in. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I decided to go ahead and try to make inspired learning selectively for the Deadeye. You can see I'm taking damage, although it's going to be a little misleading. Some of the damage that I'm taking isn't real damage. It's just Forbidden Rite. Every little, like, pop, pop, pop down, that's just Forbidden Rite going off. It's not really that dangerous, as you can see. And I still have a ton of leech. And I got a ton of life on hit. I have extra life on hit, in fact, because it's on my Watcher's Eye. So that's groovy, right? I don't know, I haven't really felt like I've been all that close to dying yet, but, you know, it definitely could happen. We're kind of deep in the mirror here. I might have lost that Blight. Nope. Oh, it's got a big roundabout there. I'm not a big fan of doing Blight in the middle of these maps. I guess I could try to loot while I'm doing this. Oh, there's a Legion boss there. Didn't even see him. Didn't see you there, buddy. Alright, Val Lightning Arrow on that guy. Take care. Oh. He got me. He got me. Blight Monster, not going to see very often. But, not even the champion is immortal, so that can happen. But you saw me survive all 3 legions relatively easily. I don't suggest trying to stand your ground and tank against +2 projectiles, 24% or whatever is this? Yeah. Extra projectiles, extra damage, crit chance. Blight Monster nuking me can be a little bit of a stretch. I have noticed that as I played this character and tried it out for size, definitely way more survivability. Although I will say, in a kind of a unique way, the survivability doesn't seem to be that much greater in the event that I'm playing like to inspired learning strengths, or playing, you know, to the momentum strengths, going really, really fast, just way too fast for the monsters to handle. That is, of course, you know, for anyone who's played kind of a glass cannon character, you can get around much of your weaknesses by just going extraordinarily fast, and you basically don't ever get hit. Well, the champion, at least in Delirium, Mirrors, and Beyond, and Legions, the damage being a little bit less means it takes me a little bit more time to kill stuff, which means in some cases they actually have a chance to throw a few punches at me, and that can spell death. I have noticed myself dying in a very unique scenarios. I might die on the champion where I would not have died otherwise, because you know, wouldn't have even got a punch off with a certain character. But that's very particular scenario. For anyone who is all about, you know, the champion having a bow build but more tankiness, and just kind of wants to be a little more laissez-faire about their playstyle, definitely really good, really fitting. So you got to see that crazy rage. I didn't really talk about it. I was a little distracted playing. But even out of combat, I mean, it's just wild, right? Look, let's see how much rage I have when this comes off cooldown. Almost top, and even when I hit it up there, it's actually going to climb all the way to the top anyway. Something I really love about the champion situation. It's just going to stay there. It's so much movement speed when I have Berserk and everything right here. But I'm just kind of sticking around in the map a little longer so you can kind of see that. And we are done with this map. Not a bad map. Just one for that blasted blight monster. Okay, so map finished. We'll take care of this later. And we're going to get into the gear, just like we did last time. I think we'll start over here, and we're going to go a little faster than usual. In the case that much of the gear is exactly the same as before, I got the exact same Greed's Embrace. I didn't really talk about the double corruption last time, but +2 AoE or +2 projectiles is nice. You can double those up. I highly recommend the reduced extra damage from crits, though. It definitely helps on some of the map mods. Percent damage is also good. Potentially there. Still got Ghoul Song, the best bow in the game. Crazy strong. The explode does mean something. The life on hit's really good. It makes it so I don't actually need the Watcher's Eye mod that is here, which is giving me a whole bunch of extra recovery, as you can see. That synergizes really nicely. But it's still nice to have, and yeah, I mean, try to get life on hit somewhere if you can. Because otherwise you're just relying on leech, and the map might have like no leech. And if it has like no leech or minus 96% recovery, it can be a little rough. By the way, 96% less recovery on a Wandering Path map does not affect your rage regen. It gets converted first, and then it's affected. But it can be a problem with Forbidden Rite, things like that. Alright, so we got the quiver just like before, and I got the same boot. Or no, actually I got different boots. That's right. Okay, here's an item that's different. A different enchant. I also lost the 6% life on there. Regenerate 2% of life per second if you were hit recently. Oh, well, that means I don't regenerate 15%. I regenerate 17% life when hit recently. So this is also synergizing with the Cast on Crit Forbidden Rite. And that's why I chose this enchant, 'cause I think it's pretty cool. But, I mean, you don't have to use this enchant. Could use whatever. I'm immune to stun due to this ascendancy point here. So you could run with attack speed for more damage instead if you wanted. But, you know, I just tried it to be thematic and just go for even more rage regen, which we got Calm Spirit over here. Still looking really good. A Mage Blood that is going to be cheaper than average because we only have 3 magic flasks. And so there are a lot of insane cat turn-ins that people don't want for 3 magic flasks. Try to get yourself one with a halfway decent double corruption, I suggest. Although the strength would come in handy here this time because I'm not using Supreme Ostentation for the removal of attribute requirements. We did have to go for attributes this time. So unidentified might be a good bet here. Very good Ventor's Gamble. The lightning roll is very, very meaningful here. Doesn't need to be this high, but it should be very high. The other resist rolls don't matter much. Pariah still there. Eyes of the Great Wolf, prioritizing percent life. I mentioned this in the first video. One of the reasons why I do have so much survivability is a high life threshold, but this character does not actually have a huge amount of life. I wasn't able to grab as much life on the tree in the champion slot. That's okay. He still has way more effective health. In fact, the Deadeye is somewhere around 30k effective health, at least according to the POB. This guy has 60k. It's over double the effective health. So quite meaningful there. A little bit of evasion and armor, but mostly that's just all the damage reduction. Quite meaningful effective health on this guy, of course. The Terrific Helmet, my favorite item, perhaps. Self-crafted. Super, super crazy strong. Also got... went ahead and kept projectile gems and... projectiles pierce an additional target. I did used to take this point instead, but I decided I'd rather have the extra point to spend it somewhere else. And when I took that point on the passive tree, I got, you know, of course, 8% damage, phys damage taken as fire, which is even more damage reduction. I think it puts me up to even 63k effective health, so... pretty awesome. Flasks, exactly the same. Nothing surprising to see here. The percent regen, the rarity, the 40% elemental resistances, Progenesis combined with a high life pool, or in this case, a champion ascendancy, and Petrified Blood is where a lot of that tankiness or extra tankiness is coming from. 28% quality divination distillate, totally fine. Didn't have any problem, right? Wasn't even close to... capping divination distillate, especially with Forbidden Rite going off right and left. Alright, so that would be all of the gear. Now let's move on to the gems, which are exactly the same in the 6th link here. Nothing surprising. No changes whatsoever. I do not recommend rarity support because a lot of the kills are going to be coming from Frenzy through Mana Forge arrows or this great DPS Mana Forge arrow setup. Don't need a Ballista totem setup. This does a lot of damage and it has auto targeting. Not to mention Mirage Archer Sport auto targeting, a lot of auto targeting, and Vengeance Cascade is just kind of naturally making everything hit. So it's kind of cool. I get to play Lightning Arrow without really worrying about targeting anyway. I do mess with it a little bit, of course. All right, we still got our really strong 4-link with enhanced support with Petrified Blood, the one that does not make me take less damage and crank up the damage over time, but rather perhaps lowers the damage over time. Actually quite meaningful here with the Forbidden Rite setup. Blood and Sand, extra projectile speed and damage. And Anomalous Berserk, of course. Trying to get that cooldown reduced is going to be really meaningful. Once again, I would love to have an Awakened enhanced support level 5. I'll be working towards that, but may not have it before the end. We'll see. Let's see, we got Mark on Hit with Sniper's Mark, Herald of Ice, Dash. Herald of Ice is not super important for this build. I think for this one, Herald of Ice is probably the least important gem of the bunch. You can use whatever movement skill you want. Once again, we kind of already talked about this 4-link here before. And then that is it for the gems. Wow, that is pretty fast. Passives, okay. Passive. Let's start with the Champion Ascendancy, just to kind of go over it again. Most of you probably already know Champion Ascendancy is typically chosen for the increased defenses and is a sort of cult favorite for taking an otherwise glass cannon build and actually kind of getting some defenses into it. A lot of people like Toxic Rain Champion, Lightning Arrow Champion, not exactly a thing, but it's pretty cool. And then I could take Inspirational for more, even more rage regeneration. But I think Taunt Conquer is actually a lot smarter here because it is just straight up 10% less damage taken. And of course, Intimidate combined with Adrenaline, really strong. First to strike, last to fall. Gotta be like one of the most powerful Ascendancy notables in the game for any kind of attack-based build. You'll notice that I had absolutely no trouble keeping Adrenaline up. I totally forgot to mention it in the map showcase, so rewind it if you want to see the Adrenaline buff up basically constantly as I'm fluttering in and out. Divination Distillate sending me over Half-Life with Petrified Blood, but then constantly, you know, through Forbidden Rite or the Mana Forge life taps supports, constantly dipping back down below Half-Life and just fluttering right there every split second. So Adrenaline's up basically 100% of the time. It works really nice on there, and an absolute ascendancy point. I love that ascendancy, and it works super well with Divination Distillate, Petrified Blood gameplay where you're trying to get an extra Magicifying stats that way anyway. It's basically a free power increase to the build that I don't really have to work for. It just integrates naturally into the build. Really nice. So as you can see, started down here, kind of took some of the usual points here, except they've transformed over, I guess. Let's go over here and take note of the Massive Wheel that has a pretty cool double corruption. That's totally unnecessary. You don't need 117 mana. You can do this with around 80 mana or so. Alright, so I did go ahead and take this one up here. You got a lot of cool notables here, and one interesting thing before I forget that I should point out is that while the Deadeye and the Ascendant are not capped on spell suppression, they have around 70 to 75 maybe, plus spell suppress is lucky, which is a good mastery, but in the case of the Champion, through unique access to some extra spell suppress, such as reflexes here, and courage down here, I was able to get away with capping my spell suppression. Almost. Very close. Spell suppression chance. That's weird. Kind of missing some right there. Where am I missing? I'm tripping out here. Should have 99. Should be 99. Oh, well, it's because I have to hit something, of course. Yeah. Okay. We'll check the POB. It's in there. 99% chance to suppress Spells, when everything is up. Oh, right. Okay, so if I'm phasing and if I have hit an enemy recently, that's going to be like 100% of the time, basically. I have 99% chance to suppress spells. So I call that spell capped. I mean, it basically is. And that is even more defensive capacity that the champion has that you might have not seen coming, actually. All right, continuing on, we have Sentinel, which increases resistances. I don't really need this right now, I don't think. Yeah, I'm 9 resist over cap, so I guess it's useful. I do get some value out of evasion and armor, but most people are probably going to take this because I had to like clear some of the rest of it with cluster passives on there. Anyway, all right, over here we got very intriguingly. I'm surprised that this is in range, but Primal Spirit is actually in range. If it wasn't, I probably would have changed my pathing and gone all the way up here, but I didn't have to go up here at all, which is awesome. Saved so many points. Didn't even need to take Charisma. That's wild. So you can see how I'm able to actually have the budget to allocate a whole bunch of other points down here by just simply not going anywhere up here. This was a surprising twist in the build, because usually when I make a champion warrior build, I just go straight up here real quick. But anyway, didn't have to do that. I still got Finesse and Primal Spirit. One of my favorite points is this sneaky one, little one right here. There's no phasing in this build, except there is, because somehow this point is barely in range, and that's really nice. Save a point here. I don't have to spend 2 points, just 1. Also, we got an entire row down here. Every build needs to have some mana and life leech. Normally, I would have to go up here for that, right? But I don't have to because, again, the Massive Wheel puts some free access right here. Or I'd have to do cluster setup, which I can't really do in my case. We got Courage and Graceful Assault for, just added benefits. The suppression, armor, evasion. Onslaught is automatic anyway. But increased effect of Onslaught, even more increased effect beyond the flasks is really nice. And then we have the Elegant Hubris setup, which is giving me a whole bunch of extra power. And of course, I had a really, really awesome setup over here in the Deadeye from the last one that was up here. But I'd say I have an equally or even more impressive Elegant Hubris for the champion. Let's take a look at it here. We got 15% attack speed. That's the weakest node, I think. Out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nodes. Now, I only had 6 or 7 on the Deadeye, but here I got 8. Quick access here. Over here we got critical strike chance. Very, very strong. And one of the reasons I don't need Charisma is because it just so happens to attach for 2 points on the Mastery, Mana Mastery. Well, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Like the Mana Mastery there. Easy access. Power Charge on crit. This is what really helped open up the 4-link on the Frenzy Quality of Life setup to allow the 2 gems necessary to get Forbidden Rite cast on crit. Just working out perfectly, isn't it? And 80% Avoid Shock. That was mandatory somewhere in the build, so it works with Storm Shroud for elemental ailment immunity. And a 40%, why not another 40% for good measure? I like to have at least a couple of those in there. And 40% crit multi. Well, that's super, super strong, even for just 2 points. And 37% Chaos Res is actually kind of mandatory for the Forbidden Rite cast on crit because I'm not capped, right? With Progenesis up, they got 37. 37 is a wonderful number here with this Pantheon. I actually have 77, so I'm just right at cap for damage over time effects, something I really like about both the Ascendant and the Champion over the Deadeye. The Deadeye is missing a Chaos Res roll, so it's much weaker in Delirium maps or it's more susceptible to the puddles and, the ground effects. Any sort of chaos dot damage ground effects can be really rough. But for the champion, still running Aberrath, and again, I talked about this Pantheon last time, just real quick. It's just unbelievably crazy strong. 20% increased recovery rate of life and energy shield. If you stop taking damage over time recently, that happens all the time in a Delirium map, as you can imagine, and just straight up reduce damage taken over time. Really strong as well. Love that Pantheon for this build. And that's going to conclude what we're doing with the massive wheel here. So again, that's a seed here, and oh yeah, I remember double corrupting this wildly strong double corruption. Of course, I collected a few of these before, and I got them for cheap. They're going to be more expensive now, double corrupted or not. But I highly recommend this seed and this massive wheel. Getting a lot of value. It's not quite as much value as it is out of the Ranger massive wheel, but it's close. It's close. And certainly if you tie it in with this Elegant Hubris, it's really pretty much on par. One difference between this build and the other two is getting blind here. So we're quick and easy access, can save a point here. Just getting blind, get a lot of extra crit chance at blind. So this build has about 95% hit chance. It was much lower hit chance than the other two. But because I did this here, I was able to change the... I forgot to mention this before checking the gear. For the Ascendant and Deadeye, I have an accuracy roll here. But for the Champion, again, I want more Chaos Res if possible. And having the extra lightning res was kind of important too, because it helped me cap out without divination distillate. Really good. So that works out super nice. I can rely on my accuracy cap through this and get a whole bunch of extra crit chance, more damage. Really useful. I mean, honestly, these 4 points here are almost as good as your standard crit cluster for 4 points. Plus, you get blind into the build, which has more defense and more offense if you're not hit capped. Major change here compared to the Deadeye is a classic 12 passive 84 plus cluster. I just crafted one of these on stream. The video before this was a highlight of me crafting this cluster for the Ascendant. But I have a separate one here. The Ascendant has 3% attack speed instead of plus for all attributes. The Ascendant could get away with that because of getting some extra attributes through the Ascendancy small nodes. But in the case of the Champion, I do not get increased attributes, strength, and intelligence that way. So, in order to meet the requirements, we just barely meet the requirements on intelligence and a little bit over on strength, actually. About 30 over on strength. It is what it is. Right here we got Forbidden Flesh and Flame for Arena Challenger. This was really expensive, prohibitively expensive. It was like 80 chaos a piece. It actually stopped me from making this video for a while, or starting this video series. It took me a while to get these, but finally did, and they're worth it because they're basically the same functionality as Tailwind. Same strength, except they're more conditional to being in combat, of course, so which is why the Champion's a little bit slower out of combat in the looting phase. One of the disadvantages it has. But, of course, it's tankier, so you're less likely to get picked off during the looting phase as well. Entrenched and all that, of course, 15% increase max life with the Greed's Embrace, super nice. Each build has a different variant of this mastery as well. So the Deadeye actually didn't take this mastery at all because it was convenient. I was already taking Forces of Nature through the Massive Wheel on the Deadeye, and I took Scorch, so actually this mastery didn't have, even had negative value in a certain sense. But for the Champion and the Ascendant, this mastery, of course, we're going to take it. The Ascendant will take it up here, but the Champion take it here. Now, you do have the option if you want to spend an extra point to come here. Forces of Nature is definitely a lot more powerful than Primal Force, and we already get it in the wheel anyway. So I do think this a nice variation of this build here would involve going down here and taking it right here, and then just kind of sacrificing the 2 points somewhere else. I don't know, maybe right here in Sentinel, and maybe somewhere else. Maybe right here, getting these 3 instead of around here for more crit multi. But at any rate, still super strong. And actually, if I'm being honest, the increased effect of non-damaging elements is kind of important for this one. If we get 50 up here, getting a little more is good because Champion does the least amount of lightning hit damage. So having a little bit of extra help to more likely guarantee that max shock threshold, it's really kind of nice. So some hidden value there for sure by going this route. We're taking the extra arrows, so the Champion does have 6 arrows fired, just like the Deadeye. The Deadeye had endless munitions, but the Champion gets Master Fletcher and multi-shot where the Deadeye didn't. Everything else here looks exactly the same. Of course, the Champion can also pick up one with Nature. Quick Step was in the Massive Wheel anyway, which is one reason why I didn't use this wheel here. Lost some value there. Aspect of the Eagle is an additional pickup here. Nice because we're missing accuracy, of course. And you could take Piercing Shots and then get a little more damage reduction through Fizz gained. Fizz taken as Fire as a prefix swap there, but that would cost a passive point. I took chance for Spell Press to be lucky on the Deadeye and the Ascendant, but we're going to do straight up phasing because it brings me up to 99% spell suppress with my whopping 10% chance to gain phasing on kill. You know, a little iffy, but works out pretty well. 1 passive voices still here. I know some people will probably just use 3 passive voices or maybe figure out something else with the jewels, although you can't really do all these jewels if you don't do this whole thing. So yeah, you're definitely going to want the Watcher's Eye. I think the percent increased life recovery and the life on hit will probably be the 2 strongest or most sensible. If you're just going for a 2 or a 2-node Watcher's Eye with Vitality, and then the regenerate percent life is just icing on the cake if you happen to get a all the way triple. Of course, if you're running Ghoul Song, you definitely don't need the life on hit here. All right, and Provocateur, a cute little addition to the build that's already taunting everything. Might as well go for the highest DPS one after pressure points if you're automatically taunting everything. There's the Sublime Vision. Here's the Storm Shroud. I do recommend trying to get this implicit where you can, because curses are kind of a pain here. I only have 25% reduced effective curses. So if I were to, keep progressing this build further and further and further in the pricing gearing threshold, I would be going for perhaps all the way up to 100% reduced effective curses. Spike Concoction, Special Reserve, wow, yeah, super strong there, and a little extra lightning res. And chaos res is actually really important on these clusters here, getting a little bit of chaos res. Oh, wow, that was a lot. A lot of passives, a lot of moving parts. This was a little bit different than the Deadeye, not exactly the typical setup you've seen, so I wanted to spend a little more time on the passives, but there they are. They're done. But we're not done yet. We got to do the PoB, so right back to the passives, but we're not really going to talk about the passives here. We're going to talk about the PoB. So you can see effective health pool 60k. I didn't mention this on the Deadeye. She had around 30k. Even though the Deadeye had 4,500 life almost, this guy has only 3,700. And the mana is about the same. Look at that rage regen, 19.9. Oh my goodness. Where does that come from? Well, I went ahead and sort of manually put in the rage per second when Forbidden Rite is coming off. So without Forbidden Rite, this is how much I have, 12. But with Forbidden Rite and 1 second after, it's 19.9. I mean, I purposely made the build this way for this reason, so that's why this is logged in here in a custom modifier. Very deliberately have my gem links and the Sublime gem choice and all that is set up that way. So we're going to include it in the path of building, of course. Yeah, standard boss setup there. All the usual here, phasing, adrenaline. If I take off adrenaline, you can see how powerful adrenaline is there with the damage reduction. Really big deal. Challenger charges, you can see Challenger charges. Look at the movement speed difference. Wow, I go from 356 all the way up to 448. 448 is higher than the Deadeye, for sure. Again, in combat, no endurance charges. It would be nice, but we couldn't get endurance charges into. Enemy is taunted and blinded, ignited and frozen, and shocked to maximum threshold. No Scorch present, though. Rage at 50 for sure. And Berserk is active on here. Where is it at? There it is. So just to show you how strong Berserk is, if I unselect that, I mean, look, it just crushes my damage. It's almost doubling my damage. It's actually insane how good that is. If we remove this, you can see how powerful this Mana Forge link is. Pretty strong, considering it auto targets. I'd say it's even stronger. Woo. All right, that's all there. 2 projectile count because of Vengeance Cascade. You can't shotgun stuff, but they do actually hit there and back. In the calculations, you'll notice not quite as much Magic Find as last time. That is because the other builds have mana and flask effect. They each have these 2, and when you combine those 2, you get an extra quantity through Divination Distillate. Went ahead and sacrificed that, so this character technically has the least amount of Magic Find stats. A whopping 1% fewer item quant and about 10% fewer on the rarity. One thing I want to bring your attention to is the recovery over here. Alright, so let's see where all that juicy recovery is coming from. At the very bottom it says conditional 15% increase. That is from the Watcher's Eye mod. Also, 15% increase through custom there. Or no, sorry, rather, that's a percent regen. What I mean to refer to is the Doom Dome helmet that also has 15%. So I got like 30%, or sorry, 21%. What am I saying? 21% plus 15%. So I guess that would be 36% increased life recovery of regen. And then all the different regen mods. We got the Flask mod giving huge amount over 6. Then we got a cluster notable. We got a Watcher's Eye notable. We got the boots when hit recently. We got the 15% from Forbidden Rite proccing. Then we got the massive 300 regen per second from Vitality, and then a tier 1 roll on the Doom Dome. So that's where all this insane amount, 2,000%, or rather not percent, 2,000 life per second essentially is rolling on there. And then intriguingly, if I stop taking damage over time recently, 23.3, if I'm crit recently through the glove enchant, could have a maximum of 26.4 rage per second on this build at any given time, but it would of course be very rare. But I just figured I'd show you, just show off, you know, what's possible in all those situations. Yeah. Okay, so you can take a look at the PoE yourself if you'd like. It is linked in the description below. So is the Atlas strategy, which is exactly the same except a different map from the first one. I'll be using the same Atlas strategy for all 3 of these videos. Same loot filter. Discord is available too if you want to check that out and see what we're up to, talking about the build. But that's it for the PoE. The last thing is my final thoughts. So let's get to it. Final thoughts. We already talked about Tornado Shot versus Deadeye. I talked all about that in the first video. I think, again, not versus Deadeye, sorry, Tornado Shot versus Lightning Arrow. Lightning Arrow is better so long as your gearing threshold, as long as you basically outgear the content, essentially, is how that goes. So if you're running a lot of Magic Find, that's super hard to do unless you have crazy high budget. I mentioned in the last video about 1,000 Divines baseline to probably get this started. You could maybe do it on less, but, you know, I mean, 3 passive voices and, you know, 2 modded Watcher's Eye, and you know, you'd be cutting some corners, obviously. But certainly it could be done. I don't know how many people are going to be interested in the champion, but I suspect there's some of you guys who are, you know, deeply in love with the idea of making that glassy bow build, cranking up the defense on it, and making it more manageable, more survivable. And it's definitely a lot more easygoing. When I play the Deadeye or the Ascendant, I have to pay more attention to what's going on in the map. That's absolutely true. I can just sort of veg out and talk to you guys a lot easier while I'm playing this build. I really like it on Crimson Temple, especially because Crimson Temple can be pretty painful, going around corners, fighting Harbingers in corridors, fighting Legion bosses in corridors, and the champion can absolutely hold his own in those maps, except for that Blight boss, I guess. That blasted Blight boss got me. But anyway, that's about it for the final thoughts. One more video coming your way. The Ascendant with haste. A more classy, well-rounded choice. The Deadeye going real hard into the damage. The Champion going real hard into the defenses and speed as a side point. The Ascendant more well-rounded, kind of just pretty good on all 3, and got some really awesome tech with the Jules Impossible Escape combination, things like that you'll get to see in the next video. I am going to go for now, and we'll be streaming here this week. So I look forward to seeing you there. Let me know what you thought of this video. Which character do you think is better, in your opinion? If you were playing one of these 2 characters, which one would you play? And are you going to attempt to make either one of these characters? I'd love to know in the comments section below. Until next time, see you around. Bye for now.